UFC 317 just wrapped up, guys, and what a great card. A historic night of fights, great finishes, new records were broken, and we have a new undefeated two-way world champion. We have a dominant flyweight champion. Crazy night of fights. I went 4-1 on main card picks, and Joshua Van cooked my parlay. I'll talk about that later. But man, this was a crazy good card. If you spent money on this card, you definitely got your money's worth because this card was amazing. Let's start off with that championship fight. Ilia Topuria brutally KOs Charles Oliveira at the midway point of the fight, of the first round, actually. It was in the very first round. 2:27 was the time on the clock. Charles Oliveira was looking to bully Ilia Topuria. He rushed forward in the beginning, tries to get a takedown on Topuria, pushes him against the fence. Topuria actually reverses the takedown, ends up on top of Charles, and then they end up in like this weird scramble where it looks like Charles might be getting a leg lock. Ilia looks in a little bit of danger. However, Ilia is able to get out of the leg lock. Eventually, they make the Ilia starts tapping leg kicks to Charles, who's on his back, who's just kind of laying there. Mark Goddard finally stands them up, right? After he stands him up, they exchange on the feet for like another maybe 30 seconds. Ilia Topuria lands two hooks, one to the chin of Charles Oliveira and then another one to the chin. Charles Oliveira goes out cold before he even hits the ground. Ilia Topuria lands some super unnecessary shots on Charles Oliveira when he's out cold on the ground. Two hammer fists. He was already out cold, but yeah, I mean, Ilia Topuria, how good is this guy? He's just the greatest striker in the history of the UFC. I mean, is it crazy to say that? Who can outstrike this guy on the feet? Who? People talk about it. He doesn't really have kicks. He only throws leg kicks. He doesn't throw high kicks or body kicks. Fair enough. But listen, man, he's proven that he doesn't need that. This guy's boxing is otherworldly. I mean, we're talking about some of the greatest boxing, maybe even, not even some of the greatest boxing that the sport has ever seen. He's now proven that his power carries up the lightweight. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. I thought he would get it done in the second round. He gets it done in the first round, knocks out Charles Oliveira, and it's like, man, if you're Arman Sarukian, if you're Paddy Pimblett, who beats this guy? Like, if you don't get a takedown and maul this guy before he gets to you on the feet, you're done, man. Like, you're just done. And he has a Greco-Roman background. This guy's too good. As he says, man, he represents the new generation. I saw this coming from a mile away. Charles Oliveira, we all love him. He's a fan favorite. But the facts are facts, man. Charles was 35 years old, coming off a very lackluster win over Michael Chandler. Listen, if you're facing Michael Chandler at 38 years old, you dominate and finish him. You don't take him to a 5-round decision. So I know MMA math typically doesn't work, but looking at the Michael Chandler fight, looking how Ilia was able to finish Max, now he's going to be more powerful upper weight class. I just had a feeling, man. And you know what? Admittedly, Topuria looked a little bit slower on the feet, and that could be because of the packed on muscle, but he didn't look as fast. Still as lethal and accurate, but not as fast. Anyone else notice that? But naturally, when you move up a weight class, you might trade off a little bit of speed when he packs on a little bit more muscle because, man, Topuria looked thick out there, man. He looked thick. He looked like a fridge. He looked close to Arman Sarukian. Anybody else notice Arman looked kind of small in the crowd? Arman's usually thicker. I don't know. But yeah, man, Topuria gets it done. He is now the youngest double champion in UFC history. He is also the first undefeated UFC double champion ever, which is crazy. And yeah, man, shout out to Ilia Topuria. Gets it done. And in my opinion, I'm just going to keep it real. Ilia Topuria has got the 3 greatest back-to-back-to-back wins in UFC history. He knocked out Alexander Volkanovski, top 5 fighter of all time, knocked out Max Holloway, top 15 fighter of all time, and knocked out Charles Oliveira, top 20 fighter of all time. Back-to-back-to-back. Round 1, round 2, round 3. And the finishes got... It's crazy, man. First guy to KO Volk at featherweight and beat Volk at featherweight. First guy to KO Max at featherweight and ever to KO Max. First guy to put Charles Oliveira out cold. I don't think Charles Oliveira has ever been put out cold, like in his entire career. Who else puts Charles Oliveira out cold? I had a feeling that would happen. None of us wanted to see it. We all love Charles. We don't want to see him go out cold. Obviously, he's a fan favorite. He has a family, but man, I just didn't see a way for Charles to win. You know, it was either he was going to play the safe game like he did against Michael Chandler, and he was going to get caught eventually, or he was going to come marauding forward like he did against Poirier, Gaethje, and Chandler. And the difference is Ilia Topuria has power, right? He has way more power than Dustin Poirier. He has way more power than Justin Gaethje. He has way more power than Michael Chandler. I'm sorry, dude. I think Ilia Topuria has by far the most power at lightweight. And you put that power on top of the fact that he's extremely accurate. I mean, if this guy clips anybody on the chin, man, they're going to sleep. You know, if Islam does not get a takedown against Ilia if they fought, I think he sleeps Islam. I'm going to be honest. I know it's a bit of glaze on Ilia, but it's like, dude, there's nobody beating this guy on the feet. He's too lethal. He's too fast. He's too accurate, too dangerous. And yeah, man, Charles gets slept out cold, and nothing to hang your head about if you're Charles Oliveira. This guy's been in the UFC since he was 20 years old. He's got 45 UFC fights, I believe, 35 and 10 in the UFC or something crazy. Maybe not 35 and 10. Maybe actually, I'm not 100% sure. But Charles has a ton of fights in the UFC. He's a former UFC champion, multiple time UFC title challenger, most finishes in UFC history, most bonuses in UFC history, most submissions in UFC history. Nothing to hang your hat about if you're Charles. Maybe go for one more money fight, then pack it up. But man, how good is Ilia Topuria? And you know what? I did not like how they brought Paddy Pimblett in the cage. I know it's a big fight, but dude, come on. Paddy beat Michael Chandler. He does not deserve a title shot. Are we really going to give Paddy a title shot after beating old man Michael Chandler, who was on a losing streak? Arman obviously deserves a shot. I know the UFC wants to punish him for pulling out before the day of the fight. Joe Rogan insisted Paddy Pimblett get into the cage. He got into the cage. Him and Ilia squared off. Ilia was cursing up a storm, which I didn't love. I didn't like how he was swearing so much. It was a little bit cringe. But Paddy got in the cage, said Scousers don't get knocked out. Ilia pushed him. And yeah, I disagree. I think Ilia would put Paddy to sleep. Paddy's way too reckless on the feet. He leaves his chin way up in the air. Ilia would clip that chin. And after seeing the way Ilia was able to deal with Charles's grappling, outside of like a single moment of a leg lock that Charles really didn't have in, I just don't see a world where, Ilia Topuria doesn't clip Paddy Pimblett on the chin and put him out cold. I just don't see how that doesn't happen. So, yeah, man, we all kind of knew it would happen. Ilia Topuria gets it done. He becomes the first man, I believe, to put Charles Oliveira out cold. Maybe someone can correct me in the comments. I don't think Charles has ever been put out cold. He's been TKO'd by Paul Felder. He's been dropped a bunch in his career. He got dropped by Makhachev. He got dropped by Poirier, dropped by Chandler, dropped by Gaethje. So Charles Oliveira has always been a bit chinny, but he's been able to rely on falling down to his back, and then you go into his guard, and it's dangerous. But Ilia Topuria is not afraid because Ilia Topuria has a Greco-Roman background. He also came up as a grappler. People don't know that. They think Topuria is just a striker, but this guy has grappling too, man. That takedown he got against Charles and kind of reversed it and got on top was very impressive. And yeah, man, what is there to say about Topuria? This guy is generational talent, and I don't think anybody beats him at lightweight. I think he beats Arman. I know people would talk about the wrestling of Arman Tsarukyan and how Arman would take him down and ground and pound him. I don't see that, man. I really don't. Maybe Arman gets a takedown. I think Ilia can work his way back up to the feet, and every second that fight is on the feet is dangerous for Arman Tsarukyan. It's dangerous. Let's not forget, Arman Tsarukyan got dropped by Joaquin Silva. He ended up winning that fight by TKO, but he got dropped by a nobody, dude. If you're fighting a guy like Topuria, you get cracked. You're getting finished, dude. I don't see who beats Topuria at lightweight. Maybe Islam could if he moved back down, but I do not think we ever see the Islam versus Topuria fight. I think that fight's dead in the water. Once Islam goes up to welterweight and puts on all that weight, he's nearly 34 years old. He's not going to want to come back down and cut back down to lightweight after going up to welterweight. I just don't see that happening. I think Islam will permanently be at welterweight, and I don't think Ilia is actually going to go up to welterweight and fight Islam like he said he would if he were to defeat JDM. So I think, unfortunately, that fight is gone. Obviously, you have the big money fight between Topuria and Paddy, but I'd rather see Topuria versus Tsarukyan, dude. I think it's more competitive. I think Ilia smokes Paddy. It's not close. To be fair, though, I think he beats everybody at lightweight. I don't see who beats Ilia at lightweight. He's too well-rounded. This guy's one of the most well-rounded fighters in history. He can submit you on the ground, right? He has great Greco-Roman wrestling, so he can defend himself in the wrestling, right? He has one-punch KO power. Anytime you're on the feet with this guy, it's a death sentence. So it's like, who does that to Charles Oliveira? We kind of knew it would happen, but to see it live is actually crazy. Like I said, man, everybody drops Charles. Nobody puts him out cold like Ilia just did. So Ilia Topuria, looks like they're going to do him versus Paddy next. That's probably the fight. Uncle Dana loves Paddy Pimblett. That's like his golden goose. That's why he gave him the win over Jared Gord. He paid off the judges. But either way, Ilia Topuria versus Paddy Pimblett is likely what's next, although I don't agree with that matchmaking. Maybe for Charles, you do Charles versus Dan Hooker. I don't think they've ever fought. That'd be a fun matchup. I think Charles could probably get a submission over him, but he's going to need some time off. That was a brutal KO. Like I said, don't hang your hat if you're Charles. This guy's a legend of the game, former lightweight champion. I respect him. We all love Charles. I did not want to see him go out cold. I was hoping Topuria can get like a light TKO and Mark Goddard could step in early or something. I don't know, but yep. Topuria is officially the first UFC double champion, I believe, that is under the age of 30. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he gets it done by first round KO. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Looks like Ilia versus Patty is next. Let's get on to that co-main event. Alexandre Pantoja absolutely bulldozed through Kai Kara-France. This was a one-sided beatdown. Kai Kara-France, I'm sorry, dude. I know that little tongue stick out thing is like a tradition, but man, is that so cringe. I hate whenever he does that at the weigh-ins. I know it's a Maori New Zealand thing where they stick out the tongues, but man, it's so cringe. Either way, Kai Kara-France gets mogged by Pantoja. I will say, for the people that are talking about Pantoja moving up to fight Merab, his cardio looked a little bit suspect in that third round. It looked like he was slowing down a little bit. I think Merab would cardio mog Pantoja. I'm not going to lie. And he would have a size advantage. But let's talk about the fight. Pantoja in the fight looked like he was looking to knock out Kai Kara-France. Pantoja just swinging wild, rushing forward versus Kai Kara-France. I was like, hold up. Kai might actually catch him on the chin. This is a dangerous game to play if you're Pantoja. Running forward, not chin straight up in the air, but running forward with reckless abandon, swinging heavy hammers at Kai Kara-France. But he eventually secured the body lock in round one, got dominant position over Kai. Eventually, Kai, I believe, did he ride it out to the end of the round? I can't remember. I'm still shocked at what Topuria did. But nonetheless, Pantoja wins the first round, arguable 10-8. He dominated the entire round. Kai had no success. Kind of the same thing, more or less, in the second round, more striking, but Pantoja dominated him once again. Just kept him on the ground, ton of control time, beat up Kai Kara-France, and yeah, eventually, this was like deja vu every round you watch. Round one, round two, round three. It was like Pantoja swings hammers, gets him to the ground, and then eventually in the third round, he sinks in a rear naked choke, dominates and schools Kai Kara-France. This is actually his second win over Kai Kara-France because Pantoja actually beat him back on the Ultimate Fighter and eliminated him. But yeah, man, Pantoja is now 10-0 against the top 10 of his division. Who beats this guy at flyweight? It looks like it's going to be him versus Joshua Van next. Obviously, Joshua Van, we'll get to his fight in a second. But yeah, man, if you're Pantoja, you got to look at this guy closing in on DJ's resume, right? Demetrius Johnson has the quantity of 11 title defenses, right? But Pantoja has the quality of 4 title defenses because he's fought way better competition. Let's also keep in mind that Demetrius Johnson got to fight for the flyweight title pretty much immediately whenever they opened the flyweight division. Pantoja didn't have that luxury, he had to fight his way to the title. So people always want to talk about title defenses. I'm not trying to disrespect DJ. What I'm saying is I think Pantoja's quality of wins is way better than Demetrius Johnson because Demetrius Johnson, after Joe Benavidez and Henry Cejudo, it gets real thin for his title defenses. Pantoja's beaten Royval twice. He's beaten Moreno twice. He's beaten Kara-France. He's beaten Manel Kopp, Like, he's beaten all these guys, man. It's so impressive. This guy's one of the most underrated champions. And even in his post-fight interview, he said it himself. I think I need to be higher on the pound-for-pound list. And you know what? I agree. I've been saying that I thought Pantoja's ranking wasn't super unfair, being that he had a close fight with Urseg. His fight versus Royval was kind of a stinker, and then he fought a guy debuting in the UFC. But now he's beat a guy in Kai Kara-France who knocked out the guy that beat him. Put some respect on Pantoja. I want to see him top 5 pound-for-pound when the rankings drop on Tuesday. Because this guy just absolutely mauled Kai Kara-France. He made it look easy. And yeah, man, can we talk about Pantoja is now the second fighter at the weight class below 155 to win a belt at the age of 35 or more. He's 35 years old, man. This guy's in his arguable athletic prime. He looks in great shape. He's fast. Like, can we talk about the speed of Pantoja? 35 years old at flyweight and you're that fast? I was impressed by his speed in the Kai Asakura fight. He comes out in this fight looking just as fast, if not faster. And it's tough, man, if you're Kai Kara-France. You work your way back up years and years for a rematch with Pantoja, and he arguably didn't even deserve a rematch. I think Kai Kara-France was only coming off a 1 win against Steve Urseg. They gave it to him because there's really no one else at flyweight. Thank goodness Joshua Van won. Like I said, we'll get to his fight in a second. Killed my parlay, by the way. I went 4-1 on this main card. Very disappointing. But yeah, man, Pantoja. I think if Pantoja goes out there and beats Joshua Van, you might could argue he's above DJ just off of name value alone. Maybe one more after that, but he's close to closing in on flyweight GOAT status because he's actually beating good competition. No disrespect to DJ, as I said, but Demetrius Johnson's level of competition was just not there. John Dodson, Chris Carriasso, Wilson Hayes, Ray Borg, Tim Elliott, You see, Demetrius Johnson just has a bunch of jobbers on his record, man. And Pantoja's beaten like legit, like in their prime flyweights that are dangerous and well-rounded. So I think with 1 or 2 more wins, you got to put Pantoja over DJ in the flyweight GOAT conversation. I think people need to let go of the whole 11 title defenses thing because DJ got the fight for the title in his second fight ever in the UFC, I believe, second or third fight, whereas Pantoja had to work his way up because that's just the age of the UFC. You don't typically get a title shot right away. You have to work your way up. But another dominant showing from Pantoja. And this is his fourth title defense, man. One of the most dominant champions in the entire UFC. I'm going to be honest, I don't really want to see the Merab fight. The UFC probably doesn't want to do it either. I just think Merab just cardio mocks Pantoja and it's going to steal all of his aura. I'd rather see Pantoja fight Joshua Van, which is obviously probably what they're going to do next. Joshua Van's marketable. He's so young. And yeah, man, Kai Kara-France, maybe he had a tough loss. You know, maybe you can do Kai Kara-France versus Brandon Royval. Have they fought? Yeah, I think Brandon Royval submitted him. Maybe do Kai Kara-France versus Kai Asakura if he wins his fight against, I forgot who he's fighting, Tim Elliott. If he wins that fight, do Kai Kara-France versus him. But good performance by Pantoja. Showed why he deserves to be higher in the pound for pound rankings. Dominates and chokes out Kai Kara-France in the third round. Fourth title defense. 35 years old, still looking faster and more fit than ever. He gets it done. Let me know what you guys thought about that one. In the feature fight, this fight annoyed me because Brandon Royval, despite being a well-rounded fighter and showing that against Tatsuro Taira, taking him down multiple times and having good success, didn't shoot a single takedown against Joshua Van, and it cost him the fight because Joshua Van was the better striker. I picked Brandon Royval to win by decision, and if I hit this, guys, if I hit Brandon Royval by decision, I bet $10 I was going to win back $160. Of course, Brandon Royval's goofy goober self decides to strike with Joshua Van and had moments, but in the fight, you can just see Joshua Van was just a crisper and better striker. He was faster. Obviously, he's nearly 10 years younger than Royval, so he's going to have that speed. Joshua Van, first of all, best boxing in the flyweight division. One of the fastest fighters we've ever seen. And to talk about a guy in Joshua Van who's 8-1 in the UFC right now, 23 years old with 9 UFC fights, is insane. He might be the youngest fighter ever to achieve 9 UFC fights. 23 years old, just outstruck and beat up the number one contender. No knockdowns in this fight, but this is one of the fights. This is one of the best fights in flyweight of all time, man. This is an absolute banger. This was the definition of a barn burner. This is the fight you go back and rewatch. It was a banger. It's definitely fight of the night, 100%. But man, for a guy who picked Royval, I was very frustrated. He didn't shoot any takedowns. He didn't try to initiate the grappling. He just kept trying to get in close. That's another thing about Royval, right? He's the tallest active ranked flyweight at 5'9". And this guy is going to sit there or stand there and try and get in close range with Joshua Van. Like, what are you doing, bro? Joshua, you have a reach advantage. You have a height advantage. Use your range, Brandon Royval. Why does this guy insist on getting in close range and trading in the pocket with Joshua Van, the best boxer at flyweight, and getting pieced up? Yeah, he landed on Joshua Van some combos at times and was looking good. Arguably won the second round, Brandon Royval. But it's like, dude, he just kept rushing in. Joshua Van would tag him over and over. And at the end of the fight, man, I thought Joshua Van was going to get a finish. If there was like 20 more seconds on that clock, you're thinking Brandon Royval might get finished. Joshua Van dropped him, was ground and pounding him. Man, I'm frustrated that my parlay lost, but at the same time, I'm also happy for Joshua Van, 23 years old, 8-1 in the UFC, just defeated the number one contender on 3 weeks' notice. This guy's fought at back-to-back UFC pay-per-view events, and now, obviously, they're going to give him the title shot against Pantoja. Pantoja's beating everybody else. A fresh matchup, finally. Pantoja versus Joshua Van, man. I would favor Pantoja. I don't think he's going to go in there like Brandon Royval and strike the whole time. He would definitely try to get the takedowns. It just depends on how Joshua Van's takedown defense would look. But, man, like I said, as somebody who picked Brandon Royval and saw what he was able to do against Tatsuro Taira and mix in the grappling and the striking and take Tatsuro Taira's undefeated record, to see him go in there and just bang it out with Joshua Van, sure, it was entertaining for the fans, but, man, I picked you to win, Brandon Royval. And you threw the fight because you wanted to make a barn burner, I guess he thought he would catch Joshua Van. He was thinking he was Charles Johnson in there. He was going to eventually catch Joshua Van and put him away. No, dude, Joshua Van actually has a good chin. Like, I know he got KO'd by Charles Johnson with an uppercut, but he actually has a good chin. He's a good fighter. He's fast. And, man, unfortunate if you pick Brandon Royval. Like I said, I would have loved to see him initiate the grappling. This guy's shown time and time again. He has like 9 submissions on his record and only 4 KOs. So Brandon Royval, by trade and by his record, is a grappler. And this guy didn't shoot a single takedown. Frustrating. With that being said, look at the strikes thrown by these guys. I combined 425 strikes thrown between these guys. They were throwing hammers, haymakers, and fight-ending shots the entire fight, looking to take each other's heads off. And it was entertaining for sure. I was a bit frustrated and salty during the fight due to my parlay. But this fight was extremely entertaining. I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch this fight. It is a very fun fight to watch. If you missed this fight, or if you couldn't watch the fights tonight, please go back and watch this fight. This was by far fight of the night. Easy. And these guys are definitely going to get 50 grand for that. But man, how good is Joshua Van? I can't stress it enough. Best boxer in the flyweight division. Yes, I think he's a better boxer than Moreno, slightly. Fastest fighter in the flyweight division. Got to be the youngest fighter in UFC history to get 9 wins or 8, have 9 fights in the UFC, 8 wins. Crazy, man. Imagine if this guy was able to not get KO'd by Charles Johnson in the last 2 decision and beat him. He'd be 9-0 in the UFC, dude, at 23. That's insane. This guy's one of the most active fighters on the roster. 9 fights in 2 years. Only lost 1 time. So good. Endless cardio. Good technique. We don't know. Not too much of a submission game. He's definitely a striker. So we'll have to see how Joshua Van does if Pantoja was able to get him down, which I do think he will be able to. But, yeah, man. Joshua Van gets it done. He bust up Brandon Royval on the feet. Royval had his moments. He cracked Joshua Van a couple times. But overall, Van definitely landed the better shots. Was able to drop Royval in round 3. And I think in round 1, he might have dropped him as well. Not sure how many knockdowns he landed. It was either 1 or 2. But Joshua Van on 3 weeks' notice steps up, beats the #1 contender. He definitely will be next for a flyweight title shot. And yeah, I'm happy for Joshua Van, sad for my parlay. Let me know what you guys thought about this fight. Absolute banger. Like I said, if you missed it, definitely go back and watch it. In the second fight on the main card, we had Beniel Dariush versus Renato Moicano. I told people all week, man, Moicano is not a one-punch knockout guy, and that's how you beat Beniel Dariush. Beniel Dariush, he only loses to guys who KO him out flat out cold, or he loses to really elite fighters. The 4 times that he's been brutally KO'd in the UFC, Alexandre Hernandez, Edson Barboza, Arman Sarukian, Charles Oliveira, he only loses whenever he gets flatlined, right? And I never saw Moicano as a guy who flatlines guys. He can get a TKO, you know, but he's not like got that power in his hands. And I was nervous. He dropped Beniel at the end of the first round. I was like, oh, here we go. Beniel's going to get finished. But no, Beniel Dariush was able to out-grapple Renato Moicano at a lot of moments. I think he showed to be the better and more technical grappler out there. And Beniel Dariush, although he slowed down a bit in the 3rd round, Moicano gassed out like halfway through the 2nd round. So Beniel Dariush showed to have better cardio. He showed to land the better strikes outside of the one that Moicano hit him with in the 1st round. And that was really the only success I felt like Moicano had in the fight, was that shot in the 1st round. Outside of that, I felt like it was one-way traffic from Beniel. Nearly doubled him on significant strikes. Great performance. No, wait, did he? Yeah, he actually did double him, 77-38. So he doubled Moicano on significant strikes and just was able to pepper Moicano up and beat him up. He spun him around with a leg kick at one point in round 1, I believe. Moicano slipped down, got back up. Beniel Dariush also was spamming kicks to the body, and I think that's a big reason on why Moicano gassed out, is because Beniel Dariush was hitting him with nasty kicks to the body. Liver shots, just spamming kicks, spamming head kicks. And I was like, man, why is Beniel going so kick heavy? Just kicking his legs, kicking his body, just being a nuisance to Renato Moicano. And yeah, Moicano ended up gassing out halfway through the 2nd round. And once Moicano was gassed, there was no way he was going to KO Beniel Dariush. And Beniel Dariush took over in the 3rd round. He busted up Moicano, easily won the 3rd round, out-hustled him, out-grappled him, out-struck him. And yeah, Beniel Dariush wins round 2 and 3. He obviously lost the 1st round because he got knocked down. But Benny Dariush gets back in the win column. This fight was supposed to go down in January. Obviously, Islam Makhachev had to fight Moicano on short notice and pull him from that Beniel Dariush fight. So they finally get it settled. And it sucks for Moicano, man. And in January, he was on a 4-fight win streak looking to fight and beat up on Beniel Dariush to get a title shot. And now he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Crazy how fast things can change. But I am happy for Beniel Dariush. He had a very wholesome post-fight speech. And yeah, man, he gets it done. Beniel Dariush, 36 years old. I definitely think he's a little past his prime. He looked kind of slow out there. He did look a little bit older, but still enough to beat Moicano, who's also 36. They're the same age. But who do you do Beniel versus next, right? I think you do Beniel versus Fiziev. He beat a guy under him. He's only won 1 fight in his last 2. So maybe you do Beniel Dariush versus Rafael Fiziev. And Moicano, who do you put Moicano up against? Maybe you do, I don't know, man. I have to look at the ranking. Maybe Moicano versus Grant Dawson. If Grant Dawson wins his next fight, that'd be a fun grappling match. But nonetheless, Beniel Dariush is able to grapple and out-grapple and out-hustle Renato Moicano. Outside of one scary moment at the end of round 1 where he gets knocked down, he out-hustled, out-grappled, and out-cardioed Renato Moicano by kicking him to the body repeatedly and just landing nasty head kicks, body kicks, just being a nuisance in the striking, as I said. Old man Benny Dariush. I told you guys he would get it done by decision. I got that pick right. And yeah, man, shout out to Beniel Dariush. He gets it done. Tough loss from Moicano. Got to feel for money, Moicano. Apparently, he can now afford to lose. Let's get on to the first fight on the main card, Payton Talbott versus Felipe Lima. Now, am I the only one that was extremely impressed with Payton Talbott's grappling? To say this guy got this much better in grappling in 5 months, I don't know. Maybe he had an off night against Raoni Barcelos, because Payton Talbott showed amazing takedown defense. He showed amazing scrambles. He showed good IQ in the grappling. He was scrambling his way out of being on bottom back to top. He took the back of Felipe Lima a couple times. He was landing solid shots on the feet, and yeah, man, just a step ahead of Felipe Lima the entire fight. Payton Talbott outlanded him 97-37 on total strikes. I don't know how many of those were significant. Felipe Lima went 3 of 15 on takedowns, so wasn't super successful with the takedowns. And even when he got the takedowns, Payton Talbott was able to work his way back up to his feet. So it's very good that after Payton Talbott cut what a lot of people said was a fraud check, it was a fraud check versus Raoni Barcelos, because he got destroyed. He went back to the gym, went back to the drawing board, improved his grappling. I don't think I've ever seen a fighter improve their grappling this much in 5 months. I'm very impressed with Payton Talbott. Obviously, he was getting roasted. I did pick him to win by decision, by the way, underrated pick. He was getting roasted, right, because he got destroyed by Barcelos. People were like, haha, Frank Ocean, little gay boy, getting beaten up by old man Raoni Barcelos. This guy's a fraud. This guy's too worried about painting his nails and all this. And I agree with all that. If you're a grown man, don't paint your nails. Either way, let's get back on topic. Payton Talbott showed improved grappling, and he looked great out there. He showed good striking as well. Felipe Lima looked good, but yeah, man, Payton Talbott snaps the 14-fight win streak of Felipe Lima. He beats him handily, I think. I think it was 29-28 across the board for Payton Talbott. You maybe could go 30-27. The first round was kind of close. I did think Felipe Lima did enough to win the first round, and Payton Talbott won the last two, but I wouldn't hate it 30-27 for Payton Talbott. But the first round was very close. But yeah, man, Payton Talbott showing improvement in his grappling. His striking did look a bit stiff in moments, but for the most part, he held his own on the feet. He beats up Felipe Lima. He out-grapples him in a lot of exchanges and shows him a lot of improvements and gets it done. Payton Talbott is now 10-1. He called out Adrian Yanez, and you know what? I like that call out. Adrian Yanez, he's seen better days. He's been busted up recently, twice in a row, by Jonathan Martinez and by Rob Font. I think he might have bounced back since then. I'm not sure. Tell me in the comments. But yeah, Payton Talbott versus Adrian Yanez. Why not? That's a fun fight. Maybe Yanez can get back in the win column, but I don't see it. I think Talbott would outstrike him and beat him up. And Felipe Lima, tough loss. I think he's only 27, so obviously he has a bright future. He is going to go back to the drawing board. I'm not sure who you do him against next, but yeah, this is a fun scrap. I was impressed by Payton Talbott's grappling. He gets it done unanimous decision, 29-28 to maybe 30-27. I don't remember, but yeah, man, Payton Talbott looked very improved, looked impressive. And last but not least, Jack Hermansson versus Gregory Rodrigues, a.k.a. Obama, a.k.a. the former president, 44th president of the United States of America. KO's Jack Hermansson. I'm going to be honest, I didn't see the beginning of this fight. My internet was crashing out, so I couldn't see the beginning of it. But once I got it loaded, I just saw that Gregory Rodrigues landed a huge left hook on the chin of Jack Hermansson, puts Jack Hermansson out cold. Got to feel for Jack Hermansson. This guy always seems to take off huge amounts of time in his career. And at 37 years old, I was worried it would catch up to him. I did pick Gregory Rodrigues. I just didn't think there was anything Jack Hermansson could have did to him with his pillow hands. You know, Jack Hermansson doesn't have power in his hands. He's kind of a pillow puncher. And when you're fighting a guy like Gregory Rodrigues in a 3-rounder, he's probably going to get a KO on you, man. How good is Jared Cannonier? Let's just talk about that. But Gregory Rodrigues in the 3-round fight is very hard to beat because this guy's powerful. He has a great ground game. This was a tough matchup for Jack Hermansson. And they actually said on the broadcast, I didn't know this, the reason Jack Hermansson was out for a year is because he had a shoulder surgery last June, a year ago. I had no idea that. Because in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of other fans' mind, they were like, man, where's Jack Hermansson? This guy's been out forever. He takes out years at a time of his career. So apparently he's been injured, been nursing a shoulder surgery / injury. He got that thing taken care of. But unfortunately for Jack Hermansson, it looks like Father Time is starting to catch up. He's 37 years old now. And Gregory Rodrigues, 32. He had a tough loss against Cannonier, but came back, showed he was ready. KO's Jack Hermansson, brutal KO, out cold. And yeah, man, RoboCop showing that maybe old man Killer Gorilla Jared Cannonier is just that dang good. Impressive win by Gregory Rodrigues. And yeah, man, it's tough if you're Jack Hermansson. Where do you go from here? You know, he can still beat a lot of the unranked guys. He did piece up Joe Pyfer a year ago, but It's like, man, now you're 37. You're coming off a major shoulder surgery. What's your motivation at this point if you're Jack Hermansson outside of money? You're never going to be a champion. For Gregory Rodrigues, I don't think he's ever going to be a champion either. Maybe he can get like in the top like 15 to 10 range, but he has good power. Obviously, he was able to KO Jack Hermansson, who hasn't been KO'd in a long time. I think the last person to KO Hermansson, funny enough, is the last guy who KO'd Rodrigues. It was Cannonier a long time ago. But nonetheless, RoboCop, Obama, whatever you want to call him, he gets back into the win column. And yeah, man, RoboCop. Let's do RoboCop versus Bo Nickel. I want to see Fraud Check 2.0. Let's give this guy to Bo Nickel. I think Gregory Rodrigues would beat the brakes off of Bo Nickel. Jack Hermansson, it's a tough loss. I don't know who you put him up against. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think they should match make Jack Hermansson. But yeah, that's UFC 317. Those are the key fights I wanted to cover. Overall, I give this card like a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. Amazing. It lived up to the hype. This is one of the pay-per-views where if you purchase it, you actually earned your money. Ilia Topuria, as expected, KOs Charles Oliveira. Pantoja dominates and submits Kai Kara-France. Joshua Van and Royval fight to a potential fighter of the year. Beniel Dariush beats up and schools Moicano in moments to win a decision, and Payton Talbott gets back into the win column. Overall, very good main card. I enjoyed the fights. They were fun. They were amazing. And yeah, man, 318 is going to be disappointing compared to 317. 317 was an amazing card. This is the kind of cards we deserved. Don't get me wrong. This wasn't the strongest card on paper, right? It wasn't the most amazing card in the world, but there were stakes, right? Ilia Topuria putting his undefeated record on the line against Charles Oliveira. Kai Kara-France fighting Pantoja. You know, there's ranking, there's stakes on the line. That's what we want to see. We want to see ranked fighters on main cards. That's what we want. Every fighter on the main card was ranked, I believe, except for Payton Talbott and Felipe Lima. Like, that's what we want to see. That's what the fans deserve. And that's what makes a good card. It isn't the result of the fights, because a lot of times Dana White will get in yapping and be like, yeah, you see, you guys said this card sucked. It was a banger. Yeah, dude. You can talk about the fights played out well, but if there's no stakes, if there's no rankings on the line, it doesn't matter if every fight's a banger. There's nothing to be excited about, because if fighter A or fighter B wins, okay, there's no stakes, there's no belt, there's no ranking. It's like, who cares? That's why 317 was so good. There was a lot of ranking spots on the line on the main card. That's why 312 was so bad. There was not a single ranked fight on the entire card of UFC 312 outside the main event and the co-main event. Every other fight was unranked. Unbelievable, the level of pay-per-views we've gotten this year. We've only gotten 3 good pay-per-views, 311, 314, 317. The rest have been duds. I truly hope that somehow, some way, they can sneak another good fight onto UFC 318. I hope so. It's a bit lacking right now. It's not the worst card I've ever seen, but it could be so much better, especially for Poirier, man. Stack the last card. Nonetheless, I'm yapping about UFC 318. UFC 317, if you bought this card, as I said, you got your money's worth. An action-packed night of fights. I went 4-1 on the main card, and I think I went 4-2 on the prelims. So overall, I went 8-3. Not bad. In main event picks, in the last 2 cards, I'm actually 10-1. Only getting the Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval fight right. And it killed my parlay, man. I'm still salty. Real ones that were in the stream know how salty I was about the parlay. But that's the breakdown of UFC 317. And like I said, man, I just want to say one more thing. Ilia Topuria just got the greatest back-to-back-to-back wins in UFC history, in my opinion. That is the greatest back-to-back-to-back wins ever in the history of the sport. Like, it just is. And the fact that he knocked out all 3, and the first guy to put Charles completely out cold, first guy to put Max out, first guy to put Volkanovski out at featherweight, insane. This guy is going to be very hard to beat. I'm going to pick him every single time he fights at lightweight because he's just too good, too technical. And yeah, man, that's my breakdown of UFC 317. Let me know what you guys thought about the card in the comments. As always, I appreciate all the support on the channel, all the likes, all the comments. Thank you guys so much. That's it for tonight, guys. I'm out, and peace.